You who don't know me, I am Melania Solan. I am Dean of the Engineering and Architecture School of the Fidelitas University, and today I have the honor of introducing this panel. Our first panel for today is about future perspectives for engineering in Costa Rica and new advances in semiconductors and microchips. As you know, the semiconductors industry has become very prominent and a major topic on the agenda of every Latin American country over the past years. And it's also become a key topic for LACCEI. That is why today we want to learn a little bit about the experience with this industry in Costa Rica as the host of this multi-conference in order to also extrapolate the experience to other countries. And we also would like to ask other countries who have already been working on these issues, maybe resolving things that we haven't been able to solve just yet, to work with us so that we can leverage that articulation and collaboration and learn from your experiences. I will now go ahead and introduce our experts panel for today. We have an important panel of experts. So first, I would like to welcome you and say thank you for accepting our invitation and joining us, for taking time out of your morning to talk about these important topics. So I will go ahead and introduce every one of our speakers so that you can know them. We have representatives from different sectors, and please, if you can stand up as I introduce you, that would be amazing. I will start with Adriana Camacho. Adriana is a lawyer. She is experienced in international law. She has a bachelor's degree in law from the Costa Rica University and a master's degree in international trade. And she also has a master's degree in international dispute resolutions from the Geneva University. She has been an advisor for international law, and she also works in the semiconductors area of the International Trade Ministry. She designed the semiconductors roadmap that was launched at the beginning of this year in this country. So please give a huge round of applause for Adriana. We have Mr. Cristian Sanchez Alcázar. She has a degree in political science from the University in Costa Rica, a master's in territorial development. She is specialist in project selections, and she is accredited by the IDB. She has worked as an executive developer and head of the human department in that university, promoting human talent. Welcome. We also have Mr. Ronald Bolaños Maroto. He has a master's degree in electrical engineering, a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and he is a specialist in industrial IT. He is a member of the Chamber of Industries, and she has been there for over 10 years. He coordinates the productive area of the executive board. And he also promotes the accreditation of engineering programs for the School of Engineers and Architects. He is president of Misoft, a Costa Rican company specialized in the application of digital solutions for engineering. He is president of CONICIT, professor of the Costa Rican Institute of Technology, and he has participated in international conferences. Right now, he is part of the Internet of Things Consortium in Costa Rica. Welcome. We also have here Javier Pérez Bordallo. He currently is director of the Intel Testing and Assembly Factory in Costa Rica. He has a wide experience in manufacturing and he has led several organizations. He has been director of different functional areas such as industrial engineering, process engineering, and production. And he has proven a huge capacity for organization in different cultures and countries. He has directed different teams in the business sector, offering excellent results. He has a huge knowledge in management and maintenance of factories, project management, continuous improvement of processes, and process control. Welcome, Javier. Thank you. We have two representatives from Intel. We have Adriana Diaz-Benage. She holds a degree in public relations, and she has a master's degree in sustainability from the National University and a master's degree in creative writing from the University of Salamanca. She has over 12 years of experience in corporate communications, public relations, and sustainability management. She is director of public relations of Intel Costa Rica, where she spearheads the communication sector through the implementation of international communication strategies, including the strategy of social responsibility and sustainability, as well as communications with the press and the academic sector on gender issues. And she seeks to have a positive impact on the social and economic development of the country through Intel. She defines herself as somebody who is very compassionate, courageous, and always speaks with the truth. Welcome, Mariana. And last but not least, since I think this is the core of our multi-conference, we have a representative from the academic sector of Costa Rica. We have Alexander Vargas Céspedes. He's an IT engineer with a master's degree in educational technology, and he also has a business mentor certification. And he is member of the executive board of CAMTIC, cybersecurity chapter of CAMTIC. He's also a member of the executive board of the University of Costa Rica, and he is co-creator and member of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship of the University of Costa Rica. He was Dean of the School of Engineering, and he currently is Vice Dean of the Latina University in Costa Rica. Welcome. And finally, we have Don Eduardo Estalante Rodriguez. He is a professional electrical engineering. He graduated from the University of Costa Rica, and he specialized in studies related to the US and the European Union. He is a university professor, and he also provides technical support for transnational companies in the design and construction of electrical works, as well as building distribution networks. He currently is the director of the engineering sector of Fidelitas University, including electrical, electromechanical, telecommunications, and mechanical engineering. And he is representative of this university in the different roundtables that are being held across the country on semiconductors. Welcome. Okay, we will go ahead and get started with a set of questions for each of our speakers, and then we will go ahead and open up the floor for questions from the audience. We will now give the floor to Adriana, representing comics. And we want to introduce what is going on around semiconductors in the country. So we want to ask you, how has Costa Rica been able to attract investment in semiconductors over the past few months? Thank you, Melania. We can't hear you. Excellent. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Melania. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you to my colleagues here. I'm here to tell you about the new opportunities that have just appeared at a regional level and specifically in Costa Rica. And in order to talk about this opportunity, we need to also look at the momentum at a global level of semiconductors. And then why focusing on Costa Rica? Well, I think that at a global level, there's been a momentum over the past 3 to 4 years since supply chains have been very hardly hit by geopolitical tensions. We have a war going on in Europe, the Middle East, as well as some conflicts in Asia. And specifically in the semiconductor industry, this has been important since Asia is not very flexible, meaning the supply chain there is not resilient enough to adapt to the changes. And there have been changes. I think that over the past few years, we've seen the changes, mainly the pandemic, of course, that was a major turning point when we recognized the need to ensure the flexibility of the supply chain. And when we started seeing important disruptions of the microchip supply chain in Asia, what COVID did was it highlighted other issues that were already present. For instance, floods and earthquakes in Asia that were also causing disruptions in the chain. So I think that's when the industry realized that we needed to ensure the resilience of our supply chain. And this has truly been a driver for the industry. And this was also supported and backed by public policies. I think that the industrial policy that is most widely known right now is the CHIPS Act, passed by the US Congress in August of 2022, which has two key objectives. The first one, or rather, I should say three key objectives. The first one is increasing investment in research and development in microchips in the United States, increasing the volume of microchips manufactured in the United States, and also improving the resilience of the supply chain. And that is where Costa Rica comes into play. This act created an international fund for technological innovation, also known as the LACCEI fund, which had $500 million allocated for 6 countries who would be the beneficiaries. And the first country to receive these funds was Costa Rica. Our country was announced as the first beneficiary in July of last year. So we started working hand in hand with the United States to evaluate how we could favor or promote resilience in the supply chain. That's it for the global opportunity. And then as for the second part of my analysis, why Costa Rica? Well, it's because we have a proven experience in semiconductors. And right now, that is key to attract investment. Intel landed in Costa Rica over 30 years ago. And I want to say that we already had a semiconductors sector. Intel truly transformed our economy and helped us move towards advanced manufacturing processes. So our universities, our ecosystem is very familiar with how to create the necessary conditions for microchips, including the technical aspects, but also the human talent that is necessary. And that is why Costa Rica was chosen as the first strategic ally for the CHIPS Act, because we truly have a reputation and a proven experience in the field. I think that those are the reasons why the opportunity is now and why it's here in Costa Rica. Great. And it would be amazing if you could tell us about the roadmap of semiconductors that Costa Rica has come up with. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, con mucho gusto.
Of course.
Me voy a devolver al fondo ITSI.
And I'll go back
El
to the
fondo
ITSI fund for
ITSI
that.
tiene
The
tres
ITSI
pilares
fund
esenciales,
is
que
based
es
upon three
trabajo con los
pillars.
beneficiarios en
First
el
one is
sector
working
privado,
with the
emprendimiento
beneficiaries in
y protección de
cybersecurity,
la cadena
talent,
de
and
suministro.
protection of the
Entonces,
supply chain.
en la parte de
So as for
talento,
talent,
estamos, tenemos un trabajo
we
importante en
are
los Estados
working
Unidos. Bueno,
hand in
enfocado
hand with the
bajo
United
estos tres
States.
pilares, el enfoque de los Estados Unidos va a ser trabajar en assembly, test y
The
packaging,
United
¿verdad?
States is going
Entonces,
to be
ese es el
focusing
segmento de la
on
cadena de suministro donde
packaging.
van a
That is
enfocar
where
la
they will be
cooperación con Costa
focusing their
Rica.
cooperation with
Sin
Costa
embargo, cuando
Rica.
hicimos un mapeo
And
de nuestro
when we
ecosistema, cuando
started to
ya
map our
comenzamos, fue una
ecosystem,
decisión desde,
and
desde
this was a
presidencia,
decision from
comenzar a trabajar más
our
fuerte en
government, we decided
semiconductores
to
como un sector
strengthen our
estratégico de
work in
nuestra
semiconductors
economía
as a strategic
y
sector
para la
of our
atracción de inversión.
economy. So in
Comenzamos
order to
a
attract new
ver que
investment, we
teníamos
started
la
to
posibilidad de
look at the
potenciar otros
possibility
segmentos de
of
la cadena que ya, donde ya
increasing
tenemos
capacity in
presencia
other sectors
actualmente,
of the
¿verdad? Y
supply
donde hay
chain,
también
where we
impulso
already have
de,
some
de,
uh,
las, de las
capacities and some
empresas.
interest from
Entonces, por
companies. For
ejemplo, hay mucho
instance,
interés de las
a lot of
empresas en
companies are
trabajar con
interested in
academia
working with the
en
academic
innovación y
sector
desarrollo y
in
ya tenemos
innovation and development.
empresas en
We
nuestro
already have
ecosistema de
some companies
semiconductores
from the
que
semiconductors
participan de este
industry
segmento.
collaborating
El
with the
segmento de
academic sector.
diseño es
And also the
importantísimo para
design
Costa
sector is
Rica
major in Costa
y
Rica.
también, de hecho, el mayor número de empresas, digamos, de este ecosistema
Actually,
se
most
dedican al
of our
diseño.
companies in
Incluso
this
tenemos
sector do
empresas
design. We
costarricenses
actually have
que
Costa
venden
Rican
su
companies
diseño
that
de
sell
chips
their
a
chips
empresas
designed to
más grandes.
larger
Entonces, esto es
companies
importantísimo,
worldwide.
¿verdad? Ahí hay una oportunidad
That
de
is
oro.
a golden
Y, por
opportunity right
supuesto,
there.
también
And of
queremos
course,
potenciar el
we
back-end de
want
la cadena de
to
suministro, que es
support the back
precisamente
end of the
assembly,
supply
test y
chain,
packaging, ¿verdad? Entonces, nos
meaning
dimos
testing and
cuenta que
packaging.
debíamos generar una estrategia
So we
no
realized that
solamente
we
para
needed to come
potenciar
up
ese
with a
back-end, sino
roadmap
para
in
poder darle
order
herramientas
to
a
facilitate the
estos
tools that
segmentos
these
de la cadena
segments of
de
the supply
suministros que
chain
ya tienen
needed.
presencia en Costa Rica para que se potencien, ¿verdad? Entonces, iniciamos desde el
That's
año
why in
pasado, en
September
septiembre,
of last year,
encuestamos a
we
todas las
conducted a survey
empresas,
of every single company.
comenzamos coordinación con más
We
de 20
started
instituciones, incluimos a la academia pública y
coordinating
privada
processes
para
with
poder
some
generar una hoja
academic
de ruta
sectors, also with
consensuada,
some
¿verdad?
public
Que
and
tuviera
private
los elementos
sectors
de
in
política
order
pública que
to
más son más relevantes para la industria, para poder generar un gran
create a
plan de trabajo
greater
país que nos
work
permita
plan
tener acciones
at a
específicas
national
y
level that will
priorizarlas,
allow us
¿verdad?
to
Entonces, así fue
prioritize certain
como
actions.
se
And that
generó
is
la hoja
how
de
we
ruta.
came up with a
Esta
roadmap.
hoja tiene
This
cuatro
roadmap is
pilares de
based upon
política
four
pública.
pillars of public
Talento,
policy.
el más
The
importante
first one and
realmente
the
para
most
nosotros,
important to us is talent.
donde
That
sentimos
is
que
where
Costa
we
Rica
feel like
realmente
Costa
se
Rica has
diferencia.
a key
El segundo,
differentiator.
incentivos
The
2.0, donde
second one
vamos a
is
revisar los incentivos que ya se
incentives
dan en zona
2.0,
franca
where we
y
will be
también
reviewing
generar
the existing
nuevos para
incentives and coming
potenciar
up with new
innovación y
ones.
desarrollo.
The
El
third
tercero,
pillar
que es
is
estrategia de atracción
strategies
de
for
inversión,
attracting
¿verdad? Porque
investments.
esta industria es
I
tan
mean, this
específica que
industry
necesitamos
is very
generar una
specific,
visión
so we need
también
to have a
específica y
specific
particular para
vision
atraer
in order to
este tipo de
attract these
industria.
types of
Y por
investments.
último,
And the fourth
mejora
pillar
regulatoria que incluye
includes
temas
regulatory improvements,
migratorios,
looking
temas de
at
salud, ¿verdad? Como registros
immigration,
sanitarios,
health
entre
records,
otros, ¿verdad?
among
Propiedad
other
intelectual también es uno
topics.
que
Also,
llama
intellectual
la
property and
atención.
copyright. That's
Entonces,
an
la
important one.
hoja de ruta es
So,
este como
the
gran plan de
roadmap
trabajo
is
que
this
hemos
huge work
iniciado a implementar
plan
desde el día
that we
después que la
decided to
lanzamos. Ya
to
estábamos
come up with and
implementándola
that we actually started
directamente con
implementing
las universidades,
as soon as we
en
designed
consulta
it.
con
We
la
are already
industria.
working in
Ya ahora
consultation with
tenemos
the
más de
industry.
30
We are
instituciones
working with
porque ya
over
más
30
instituciones también se
institutions, and
quieren
we have
sumar
more
a la
institutions that want to
implementación de la
join
hoja
us
de
in the
ruta.
implementation of this
Entonces,
roadmap.
la verdad es que es un
So
momento
this
muy
is
emocionante para
a
nosotros porque toda la
key
institucionalidad
moment for
pública,
us.
la
We have the
academia y
public
también la
sector, the
industria
academic sector, and
estamos
the
trabajando
industry
en una sola
collaborating and
dirección
working
para poder mejorar nuestras
together to
condiciones y
improve
así
our
atraer
conditions and
más
attract
proyectos.
new projects. Thank you, Ariana. And that is why we have these experts with us here. And in connection to what Ariana was just telling us, I would like to ask Javier to tell us a little bit about the industry. Ariana was mentioning how Costa Rica is very strong in design, testing, and packaging of semiconductors. So maybe, Javier, you can now let us know a little bit about your long history with Intel in Costa Rica and what are the processes that you're currently developing?
Sure. First, thank you for the invitation. As Ariana was saying, Costa Rica has become very important because of this resilience that we want to achieve in the supply chain. After COVID, everything has changed. And with all the geopolitical matters that we are experiencing in Costa Rica, we have three groups that are very important. On the one side, R&D, the plant, and then corporate services. That's what we have at Intel. If we speak specifically of the plant, we produce 50% of the microprocessors of the microprocessors produced worldwide. Obviously, servers are a very important product, and we need to supply the world on a permanent basis. Our process is divided into three: assembly, testing, and packing. In assembly, basically what we do is we take the silicon or the die in English, we assemble it here, and we connect it with the various components that are also brought from different parts of the world, like substrates, heat disseminators, etc. And we join them, we bring them together so we can have the microprocessor. It's important to note that even if the silicon is the most important part of the microprocessor, silicon on its own does not work. I mean, you need to connect it to all these other parts or components so that it can work. Because once it's assembled, it can be connected to a motherboard. So we test it, then it goes through different functional tests. And that means that we load different Microsoft or Linux softwares. And then another important part is to ensure that from the mechanical and electrical part is absolutely functional so that the current can go through. And then what we do is we package it. We add the different labels and brands so the customer knows what product they are receiving. And something that is very important, we have traceability for each unit. So we have all the information of all the units that exist in the world right now that have been assembled and sold by us. So any issue we have with those units can be solved. And there we have security, automation, etc., etc. But in general terms, that is what we do in Costa Rica. It's important to mention that we are producing the state-of-the-art microprocessors and Intel 18A and so on and so forth. So we are at the edge of the technology right now. Excellent. I'm now going to ask a question to Ronald that represents the chamber about what we've just heard about the processes at Intel. Why is it especially important for Costa Rica and for all the countries that are represented here to have this kind of industry? Well, if we understand the technological trends right now, we are all speaking about artificial intelligence. Of course, that will require a huge amount of servers. So the market for Intel will continue growing. Apart from that, the concept of computer is changing. We used to think of a computer like a desk computer, then the portable computers. Now everybody's carrying a computer in their pockets when we speak of smartphones. And when you're said that the computing power of this computer in my pocket is larger than what NASA used to send a man to the moon, well, we see how things have changed. But this will continue. We are hearing about autonomous cars and we see the videos and all that. Obviously, there's a very strong trend towards automation. Many tasks will be done by machines and smart systems, and that will increasingly strengthen the use of semiconductors. It's a strategic industry for the world, and the chip, as I mentioned before, recognizes that. The industry, from the strategic point of view, cannot let 80% of production to be focused or concentrated in Asia. And these economies, as in the case of China, are becoming a geopolitical rival for the states. That's why it's important to expand the industry in the Americas, not just in the United States. And that also solves a social problem to the United States, the problem of migration. So from the geopolitical perspective, it makes sense to strengthen this industry in these countries so that the countries improve their economies and improve their leadership, because that makes people tend to stay in their countries. And that will solve the big problem on the border between the US and Mexico. So, from many perspectives, it is strategic to have a semiconductor industry here. The other challenge for the country is how to create an ecosystem that leverages on that strategic advantage and to become key suppliers in several parts of the chain, R&D, but also start to create our own smart products. We have a strong medical device industry here. Why don't we also strengthen R&D in a generation of smart medical devices, which is what's coming when we speak of the Internet of Things and these things? So I think there's a big opportunity there, not just speaking of semiconductors, but also research and development in the country and strengthen what we have already, medical devices, the airspace as well, that can also be improved, cybersecurity, that is another strategic aspect, services. The country has an increasing presence there. All this allows Costa Rica to be part of the big leagues, to make this leap to development, to become a developed country. That should be the direction the country should follow. So Mr. Ronald speaks about improving, enhancing the industry. So I would like to ask Christian, what are those main programs, projects, activities that have been developed to enhance the semiconductor industry? Good morning, first of all. Thank you for the invitation. Before going into that question, I would like to give you some context. And with the Ministry of Foreign Trade that deals with the strategic elaboration of the public policy, Procomer executes it. So, of course, hand in hand with the strategy, we have implemented in this triple pillar system where the industry plays an important role, also academia. And as a government agency, what we do is to deal with those strategic areas. So, speaking of human talent in semiconductors, the problem is very complex that requires different types of interventions. We are speaking of a segment that has to be prepared, that from the technical perspective, there's also an important participation of entities like the National Learning Institute, that is an institute that has been iconic in that area of technical training. Besides, we also have a collaboration with the Ministry of Public Education, with everything that has to do with the vocational schools that play an essential role in the primary and secondary education. making this connection to the semiconductors, that is, in the technical education uh, field, we can improve so that we can have the new generations that are more prepared in these aspects. We also have higher education. That's where universities or colleges come to play. They've been creating a specific curricula for many months already. Once they learned that now Costa Rica is an important actor in the area of semiconductors. And together with academia, as promoters, we've been creating our own training and education portfolio so we can supplement and tackle those areas where we need to train our professionals. For instance, I don't want to speak about this now. There are many incentives I could mention in a second round, but I would like to say that both from the area of professional outreach, we can create upskilling and reskilling programs. Costa Rica historically has been known for its human talent that is very well trained. So we are trying to bridge gaps. Apart from consultations to the companies, we want to identify the areas where we have to make an additional leap to face the new challenges of the semiconductor industry. Intel, well, obviously has played an essential role in that area, but other companies as well, for medical devices, for instance, because there are elements that are common to the education in the areas of engineering, for instance, that are common for both industries. So our idea is to take advantage of what we've done already in those fields and try to find a menu of those areas where we should be generating an additional educational offer. So to tackle those elements, and with this, I want to summarize this, we have programs that are open to the public in general. Some of them are even guided to vulnerable uh, populations in socio-economic terms. The semiconductor industry offers opportunities for social mobility for all the population. And we are connecting populations in different areas of the country. That's another important element. With the semiconductor strategy, with this roadmap, we want to start and supporting regions that perhaps historically did not have these opportunities for technical and professional development. There are clusters already identified in the west, in the north, etc. We also want to use the talent clusters that have been identified already that have an advanced level of development. And here we're going to introduce programs that target professional layers, engineers, for instance, IT engineers, electromechanics, industrial mechanics that can make that qualitative leap I was mentioning before. And finally, let me say that we are investing, co-investing with the companies. And this is very important because companies like Intel have a global vision. So we are investing resources to supplement those efforts that the private sector is already doing. And we are doing it in an associative manner so that it makes sense together with the country strategy that has been defined for this industry. Then we're going to go back to all these, I'm losing my voice, all that professional baggage that we need in the country. But I would like to go deeper into what you mentioned about co-investment. Are there any specific incentives for the industry? Yes, that's the answer is yes. For a few months already, actually, under the publication of the semiconductor roadmap, Rocomer has several incentives focused on human talent. There's one in particular that is an incentive for the companies in the free zone, the free trade zone, that allows semiconductor companies to present training and education programs for employees or for aspiring employees to fill the requirements of the industry, and under rebates, they can ask for a counterpart focused on those training programs. Well, fortunately, companies like Intel are participating in these mechanisms, and this has allowed us to reach thousands of people. Actually, we are now closing the second edition of the incentive for the development of human talent in the companies in the free trade zone, and we have reached almost 4,000 people with this mechanism. So with this interinstitutional cooperation, we want to expand the target audience. So this is an advertising. The idea is that more companies can use this mechanism so we can expand the opportunities in terms of education, and that eventually we will reach, as the colleagues mentioned, um, so that eventually Costa Rica may be a developed country, mainly based on our human talent. Thank you so much. Now we are going to focus to more academic aspects. But before that, as we have Ronald here that wears several hats, and among those opportunities that he mentioned, I would like you to tell us from the point of view of INADE, you know that you're from INADE, the Association of Engineers, the industry chamber. How is the industry preparing itself for the arrival of new companies and the strengthening of Costa Rica with all this industry? Well, we have to consider that right now there's a factor that is affecting us all in the industry, and that is that the talent that is very good is scarce right now. So in the latest survey at the Chamber of Industries, it was identified as a factor mentioned by 47% of the respondents. They identified human talent as a problem. And if you compare the numbers of Costa Rica and a developed country, 20% of the population is in STEM careers in developed countries, but in Costa Rica, it's just 8% of the population. That's a big gap. So that means we need more vocational training, showing the youth, because there's a fear of maths and physics. They don't want to follow those courses here. So we have to trigger that motivation for science careers. And some groups that are more marginalized, that, like women, for example, they should be integrated to have more women in STEM careers. I love the example of Timothy Scott of Intel in a forum you organized about the president of Intel, the incentives they have there, maternity leave and those things. Now she's the president of Intel. That's very positive. That is important in terms of gender equality. But we have to strengthen the ecosystem in education. One of our initiatives was to strengthen the trust fund of Procomer for the free zone area. Well, the agreement has already been signed between Procomer. I think it's $5 million a year, so perhaps that can be used. And in other fora, for instance, the Association of Engineers, the accreditation of the engineering courses is very important. But there's an issue, and I think we are not seeing how to connect technical education with engineering education. In the 90s, when I was in the famous national system for technical education, I was representing the tech there. I was in Taiwan, and what surprised me was that in Taiwan, and it was taken from a German model, you couldn't become an engineer if you had not been a technician before. It was like a pyramid model. You have the different layers. And I'm convinced, not only because I saw it there, but because what I saw with colleagues coming from technical education and then become engineers, that an engineer that is first a technician has a depth of knowledge that is important when we do R&D. Not perhaps in the maquila industry. I was telling you that the first degree I obtained was mechanics engineering. In mechanical engineering, you cannot do a lot of design. Electrical engineers do more design, but we don't have automotive industries in the country or airplane or so a mechanical engineer doesn't have a lot to do here. Perhaps they become administrative engineers. So in my generation, my colleagues are now working as managers in other areas. I stayed as a consultant in the private sector. We have to improve that if we want to do more R&D. These are changes we have to do in our system, in our culture, if we want to be part of the big leagues. Perhaps those are the changes we should introduce. And the other thing, well, lately in the chamber, we've been having meetings with different strategic sectors like aerospace, with a technology company as well, to help them see what technologies they needed if they wanted to move to R&D. With the medical cluster, we're also working. Jorge Uribe is the director of R&D at Western Scientific that is now in the US, and he leads R&D for the States and for Costa Rica. And on August the 8th, he's going to come to the chamber to talk about his perspectives about what he considers we should do to enhance R&D for medical devices. So we are doing that kind of work right now with the idea of preparing ourselves for the coming of the semiconductors. But it's a paradigm shift for the country. Costa Rica is too expensive to be competitive in the maquila sector. Mexico is half as much, or one third perhaps. But recently I had the experience with a Colombian, and he was surprised at the cost of a hamburger here. He said, with this, I buy 3 hamburgers in Bogota. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio. I suppose that with most of the countries in Latin America, it's around the same, a 3-to-1 ratio in our costs. That makes us not very competitive in the low complexity technological areas. We have to move to high complexity technology where the differentiator of human talent is significant. And we should move towards automation and other trends.
Thank you. So far, we've seen or talked about how the industry is preparing, and we always end up mentioning human talent, which is the common factor. So I would like to ask Javier again to speak now and tell us what programs are the most chosen by the industry to hire their employees. Well, of course, just to give you some context, we've been evolving over the years. We started manufacturing, then moved on to R&D, and right now we are working on more complex processes. A few years ago, nobody was talking about artificial intelligence. So what I say here today might change tomorrow. And before delving into the specific programs, I want to recommend something to all engineers. Learn how to write code. You have to learn how to be developers and write software. That is something that you need to learn how to do. We know that data are essential for every manufacturing process. And in order to extract data, you need to be a developer and you need to know how to program. So, having said that, Intel has three areas. Two are dedicated to engineering and research and development. And then we also have the manufacturing part. What do we do in research and development? Well, we design microprocessors, we validate them, we develop testing software so that we can test our microprocessors. So basically, everything having to do with mechatronics, electrical and mechanical engineering, software development, those are the programs uh, that we are seeking the most graduates from. As for the manufacturing part, we need industrial engineers. Obviously, those are necessary. In a factory, we also need specialists in production. We have materials engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, electronic engineers, and mechatronic engineers as well. We hire those engineers because we have high technology equipment and we need to be able to sustain those processes. And I think that is the advantage of advanced manufacturing. We need a lot of different types of engineers, much more than most of the industries. Basically, that is the range of engineers that we are always looking to hire. And another interesting thing is the following. I'm an industrial engineer, but I ended up working in process engineering. So a really nice thing is that we learn from each other, we learn new specializations, and we start becoming experts in different areas. That's also the positive thing of having different professionals collaborating. We are creating more complex professionals that can contribute to creating the ecosystem in the country. Thank you. And now we will go ahead and hear the academic sector of Costa Rica, here representing the Latina University and the Fidelitas University. So I will go ahead and ask a question for the both of you. How have universities been preparing in the face of this growth and this higher demand that the country is about to get for these programs that Javier has just mentioned?
Gracias y bueno, buenos días a
Thank you, and
todos.
hello,
Yo
everyone.
quisiera
I
empezar
would like to start
refiriéndome
by
al
referring
comentario
to
de Diana
Adriana's
casualmente
comment
de la experiencia que como
on
país hemos tenido
our
desde la llegada de Intel a
experience as a
finales
country since
de los
Intel started
90,
operating
porque
here
esto no solamente activó la economía
in the late
efectivamente,
90s.
¿verdad?
Intel activated
E
our
hizo que
economy
empezara a
and
crearse un
started
ecosistema
contributing
en
to
temas
creating
semiconductores,
an
sino que
ecosystem
también
in
pues a la
semiconductors.
academia nos
But it
obligó,
also
¿verdad?
sort of
A poder
forced the
actualizar
academy or the
varias
academic
de las
sector to
carreras
update
que estaban
our
relacionadas
engineering
a este
programs.
tema, ¿verdad? En temas que pues ya están inmersos pues
It
en
forced us to
estudios.
create new
Eh,
programs
Eso ha
related to
sido
these
pues sumamente
new
importante porque
sectors and this new
efectivamente
industry.
contamos
That's
con esa
been key
experiencia, ¿verdad?
because now we have a
Y
lot of experience.
desde la
And
Universidad
from
Latina
Latina
pues tenemos
University,
un
we are very
compromiso
strongly
enorme.
committed
Eh, Nosotros como
to these
universidad somos la
programs. We
universidad
are the
privada más
largest
grande de este
private
país.
university
Somos
in Costa Rica.
la universidad que
We
más
are
ingenieros
the
graduamos en
university
este
with the
país.
highest number of
Pero además
engineering
no solamente
graduates in the country.
contamos con
And
una variedad muy
we
amplia en las
have
diferentes
a
ingenierías,
wide array of
sino que
engineering
también
programs.
hace 4 años
Also,
pues
4 years
tomamos la
ago, we
decisión
made
de
the
poder hacer una
decision
alianza
to
con la Universidad
create an
Estatal de
alliance
Arizona
with Arizona
y
State University,
eso para
and
nosotros pues
that
digamos que nos ha metido también
has
mucha
also
presión, ¿verdad? Porque esta
forced us to improve
universidad
ourselves.
en los Estados
Arizona
Unidos,
State
pues es la que
University is
desarrolla
the
y
university in
forma
charge
pues a
of
los ingenieros no solo de
training
Intel, sino que también de otras
Intel
empresas en
engineers
Estados Unidos y en
and
Asia.
engineers for other companies in the United States
Y
and
pues
Asia.
casualmente es la universidad
It is the
que el Departamento de
university
Estado en los Estados Unidos pues designó
chosen
para la
by the
administración
U.S. Department
de
of
estos
State
fondos ICSI,
for
¿verdad? Y
the
para
allocation of the
el
IPSA
desarrollo de la
funds and
estrategia.
for the development of
Con
the
ellos hemos
strategy for
venido
these funds.
trabajando
We
desde
have been working with Arizona
prácticamente
State for
un
about a
año
year,
en poder no solamente enriquecer
trying
la
to
currícula de nuestras carreras,
incorporate new
sino que también de
contents
generar un
to the
portafolio
curricula, to the
complementario
syllabus of our
basado en
programs,
ese upskill y reskill que
and
Cristian se refería,
also
¿verdad? Que es sumamente importante.
upscaling our skills in
Hemos
our
venido
programs.
trabajando en las diferentes
We've
mesas
been
de trabajo
collaborating and
organizadas pues,
participating in different
por COMEX y
roundtables
otras
organized by
organizaciones. Y yo creo
COMEX and
que
other organizations. And
lo
I
más
think that
fundamental
the
es la
key thing
colaboración que se ha
is
tenido pues, con el
our
ecosistema en
collaboration with the
semiconductores, con las
semiconductors ecosystem.
diferentes
We've
empresas, entre las tres
collaborated
empresas
with the
que
three
hay dentro de
semiconductor
semiconductores, e incluso con la
production companies
colaboración
in the
con
country.
otras
And we've also
academias que ha sido
collaborated with
sumamente importante.
other
Recientemente, ahora en mayo, sacamos
institutions,
nuestra
other
primera
academic
certificación
institutions.
profesional
At the
en
beginning of May,
semiconductores,
we came out with our
avalado
first
casualmente por
certification in
cuatro de
semiconductors,
estas
backed by
empresas
4 of these
y,
companies,
y que incluye pues también
which
pues, sinopsis y otras
includes
herramientas
tools like Synopsys and
que
others
son
that are very
utilizadas pues
widely used
en la
across the
industria.
industry.
Creemos pues
We
que es
firmly
importante
believe
esa
that this
colaboración,
collaboration
¿verdad?
is
No
really
solamente
important,
con la industria para poder ver qué es lo que
not only
requieren,
to collaborate
sino
with
que
the
también
industry, to learn about what the
con otras
industry wants,
academias,
but
tanto
also
locales
to
como
work
a
hand
nivel
in hand with
internacional.
other
Con la Universidad Estatal de
institutions.
Arizona nos estamos trayendo el modelo de un centro de
With
excelencia
Arizona
de
State, we are
formación
working
en diseño
on
y verificación
a new
que tienen ellos
center
en
of
Vietnam junto con
design and
Synopsys
verification
y
that
esperamos
Arizona State
también pues
has
poderlo tener
in Vietnam, along with Synopsys. And we
pronto
hope
acá
to be able
donde
to bring that
desde el cual
center
pues podamos
to Costa
casualmente no
Rica. From that
solamente
center, we will
formar
be able to
a nivel técnico,
provide
sino que
technical
sobre todo
training
a
and
nivel profesional
professional
y poder hacer pues
training.
ese
And we will be
upskilling
able
a
to do
tantos
upskilling for a
ingenieros que
lot of
actualmente pues
engineers
tenemos en el país.
who are
Y
already
tal vez
working in the
quisiera
country.
cerrar indicando
And
que
as a final
se
remark,
tocaba
I
un
would like to
punto
say that
que creemos desde las universidades que es
the
sumamente
academic
importante
sector
y es que debe de
thinks
haber
very
pues
strongly that
una modificación
there
o una
has to
reestructura del
be
modelo de la
a
educación en Costa
modification,
Rica,
a
en donde
restructuring
casualmente
of the Costa
pues
Rican
desde
education
preescolar, ¿verdad?
model.
Primaria y
We have
secundaria,
preschool,
pues se
primary school,
aborden
secondary school,
temas de
and we
STEM y que
need
se
to
puedan
include
enfocar más hacia
STEM
temas STEM.
topics
Usualmente
and
las
STEM
universidades nos dicen, bueno, pero
contents
ustedes, ¿por qué no
throughout
jalan
the entire education cycle.
más muchachos hacia
We always
carreras
get asked,
STEM? Bueno,
why don't you get
usualmente
more
a
applicants to
quienes sí
STEM
hacemos
degrees? Well,
diferentes actividades
we
para
are
poder
actually
prospectar,
conducting different
¿verdad? Y para
activities
poder con ferias vocacionales atraer más
to be able
talento.
to attract more
Es poco lo
talent,
que podemos hacer ya desde la
but
educación
higher
superior,
education can
¿verdad?
only do
Creo
so
que debe
much,
haber un
right? I
mayor
think
esfuerzo
that we need to focus our
en
efforts to include
etapas
STEM
más
contents
tempranas
in
por un
previous,
interés
more
hacia
early stages of education so as to help
vocacionalmente hacia
people become
carreras STEM
interested in
y eso
pursuing STEM
pues
degrees
nos
after they graduate high
beneficiaría pues a
school, and
todos.
that would benefit us all. Thank you. Eduardo?
Buenos días, muchas gracias. Muy
Hello.
honrado y muy
Thank
feliz de
you
estar en
for
esta
inviting
actividad tan
me
importante a
for
nivel
such an important
latinoamericano.
multi-conference
Y este
and
tema
for
es un
this panel
tema
specifically.
que creo que debe
And
ser considerado muy importante,
this
obviamente
is a
para Costa Rica,
major
pero
topic
nos
for
ponemos a
Costa
pensar
Rica, but
que en realidad nosotros somos todo
also
un
for the region
ecosistema,
as a whole.
toda
The
América.
Americas are an
Y
ecosystem in themselves.
esos
And
núcleos de
those
desarrollo
centers of development that have been created by this project will in turn yield new developments for our neighboring countries. I think that this multi-conference is ideal for, exchanging knowledge across Latin America, not just among Costa Rica and Panama. Now, as for the situation in the academic sector specifically, we've mentioned that one of the main challenges has to do with the need to increase our human talent, getting more people in the different areas. Based on Intel's success, as we know historically and as our speakers have mentioned, well, Intel has been really successful. It has grown in the country. It is contributing an important volume of production to the global production of microchips. So we know that the raw materials are there. But the number of people in the specializations are areas for development. The number of professionals in STEM careers and also technical careers is a problem. In developing countries, the people, pursuing degrees in STEM in order to have a STEM career is low. We don't have a lot of people pursuing these degrees. So at a Latin American level, we are always looking at where we can apply this concept of humanitarian engineering. If we turn to people who need help, who need training and development, we will find a huge opportunity there. Who are the people who need new jobs? Who are the people who are going to be benefiting from this development? We need to reach the people who are in the most need to obtain jobs. But the issue is how to reach them. We need to incorporate new people into our STEM degrees. Fidelitas University, for instance, has a program called STEMinist. We're developing it along with Intel. And it's devoted to incorporating women into STEM programs, into semiconductors specifically. And we are using this program to organize activities, to reach young girls who are still in school and helping them access our labs and participate in activities related to STEM degrees and degrees in technology. And that can be applied across the board, not just for women. I know that the government and all of our organizations and institutions are working on projects related to this. And what have we done in the face of this challenge? Well, we have the STEMinist program. And we are also raising awareness amongst the different communities, letting them know about this project, about the benefits of pursuing a technical or a professional degree in STEM. This might seem funny, but we once told somebody that we were working on a semiconductors project And they responded to us, what do you mean, conductors as in drivers, as in truck drivers? They didn't even know what it meant. That's why we need to motivate and train people, and we need to integrate technical training with professional training. What have we done from Fidelitas Universities? Well, we have been in contact with communities. We are present in all of the forums hosted by Procommerce and representatives from the United States Embassy, from the United States State Department. We've participated and spoken at excellence centers offering solutions. We are working hand in hand with organizations. We've also started to work closely with experts. Experts to us are crucial. We have a lot of Intel engineers who are actually graduates from our institution. Some are even professors in our universities. Some are our friends. Some of the engineers currently working in the sector were actually my students back in the day when I was a professor. And those are the experts that are working in Intel and in other companies in the industry. This is something that we need to use in order to understand the scenario. And we've also met with LENA officials to integrate, the technical and professional degrees. And we've already launched the first program of technical training in semiconductors. The program is halfway through the year, and it is going to train new professionals who will be ready to work in new manufacturing plants. We are also developing programs that will supplement our degree programs in our university and other universities as well. Because it's not just these degrees in engineering. Those are not the only programs that will participate. Those are not the only engineers that will be part of this process. We have to aware of the fact that this process is focused on semiconductor companies, but it will also create a network of satellite companies which will be providing services to these main companies. I imagine that Intel must be using a lot of resources and services. So if we think that we might have 5, 6, or even 10 plants similar to the Intel plant, we are sure that that will create satellite companies and satellite products and services that will be catered to those companies. Manufacturing plants conduct a lot of activities around the production of semiconductors, chemical treatment for wafers, photolithography, right? Those have to do with semiconductors in themselves, but there are some other processes that are outside of the scope of semiconductors. And that is where the satellite companies come in. We cannot turn away from a lot of communities who will use this opportunity to have access to new jobs and new training. So we are working on alliances. We are in communication with another university, the Purdue University, specialized university that is providing assistance and expertise for these issues around the production of semiconductors. So we need basic technicians, we need complementary courses in our curriculum, We are creating optional bachelor degrees. We are moving forward on those, and we will be including new elective courses in those. And we are also developing specializations and master's degrees. We can't just create a degree called Semiconductors Engineers, where people will have to start from scratch. We know that it's better to come up with new complementary courses that can be added to the existing careers and the existing degrees. And that is what we're doing. We are working on supplementing the existing degrees and the existing graduates. And we don't care where they work, where they graduated. This is a Latin American project. I think that LACCEI can have a huge contribution here because we can prove the United States and the rest of the world that we can become a developed country if we leverage this opportunity. I'm sorry to interrupt. We need to continue with a topic that Eduardo raised that has to do with opportunities for women. Intel has been recognized for the production of semiconductors, but also for being a company that really seriously works on inclusion. Adriana, I would like you to tell us why this industry is an opportunity for inclusion and how you can work on closing the gender gaps.
Thank you. Let me start by telling you a story about something that happened last Friday. We had a graduation ceremony for a program we have at Intel for teaching programming, as Javier mentioned, an essential skill. And we discussed a lot about the technical skills, but it's also very important to have skills for life. And women, for different reasons, are very strong in these skills. This program targets young girls, 13-year-old girls on average, from areas with a very high social vulnerability risk. And they graduated on Friday. So we wanted to invite a woman, an engineer from Intel, Daniela, to tell us her story. She's 24. She's an engineer in materials. And she described to us from where she was in 7th grade until she graduated at university, what it was like to pursue a STEM career when everything seems to be against her. Lack of support in her family, lack of resources, lack of information. And before Daniela told her story, we gave the girls a picture of the group, of the cohort that was graduating from the program. And we asked them to write what they wanted to achieve as from today. So they wrote about it, and then Daniela shared her story. When Daniela finished her story, they all took their pictures, they crossed out what they had written, and they wrote something different all over. So I approached one of them and I asked her, what did you change? And she said, well, that's the story I want to tell about me. You see how important it is for women to be able to listen, to hear that this is possible for them, that this is close to them, not only from an inspirational position, that is, of course, very important, but also to give them the tools. And everything we do at Intel has that perspective. We want them to know that they have everything in order to succeed in a world that historically has been dominated by men, where although more women are graduating from university, in the STEM areas, there's still a big gap of around 3, 4 out of 10 are women. And if we go to the courses that are mentioned as hard courses, mechatronics, electronics, the gap is bigger. So I'm sharing this story because the opportunities that all of you have mentioned have to be available to everybody, not only in the urban centers, but to everybody. We cannot leave anyone behind. 50% of the population are women. And if women had the same opportunities to pursue careers in the areas of technology, that's not only the right thing to do, it's not only a human right to have access to these careers, but we're also speaking about the benefit this might bring to societies, being more sustainable and prosperous societies, where women contribute to innovation. They contribute to the generation of opportunities that and that translates into prosperity at the end of the day, in a reduction of poverty, innovation. Innovation requires a diversity of perspectives, and women cannot but contribute our voice because technology is gender neutral. It depends on who is behind it, creating it, that will determine whether AI is free of biases. So the opportunity is huge. It's upon us here representing this triple pillar to have an impact, for this to be an opportunity for all, particularly for women, where 75% of the jobs in the future will have something to do with having the skills and the technical capabilities that are highly specialized in the world of technology, in this accelerated era we are experiencing where change is the constant thing. So we have to make sure women are not left behind, as well as Afro-descendants, those that have been historically underrepresented. That is our commitment at Intel. That's why one of our values is inclusion. That's why Daniela shared her story about as a woman engineer in Intel, but this goes beyond Intel, and that's our responsibility with programs, as I mentioned, as Eduardo mentioned as well, with the Fidelitas University and with academia. We are always open to them to combine efforts, and that requires goals and commitments that are tangible, measurable, and all our programs contain that element because that's the way to quantify our impact, changing the lives of people, of women, one woman, one student at a time. Perhaps you can tell us briefly about the program for semiconductors. The wonderful thing about this program is that it's very comprehensive. We see the different stages along the way, the path of a student from the earlier stages that has to do with strengthening skills like maths, for instance, because a finding of the state of education is that women, as from 8 years at school, they start failing. I mean, their rate of failure is twice as high as among boys. So it's an issue of stereotypes that have been systematized, and we have to deal with that. So we have to convince these girls from a very early age that they can also be good at mathematics and other skills. So it starts with strengthening those skills. It also has a component of working with the teachers because we normally address students, but if their environment, their family environment or their supporting environment, like teachers, also need to be more aware about the gender gap, then we need a more comprehensive approach. And this program also includes teacher training as to how to teach STEM skills and how to be aware of their unconscious gender biases. Then we have the vocational part, workshops working out real challenges that are faced in the semiconductor industry through workshops. All this was co-created with Intel engineers. And I say engineers, both men and women. And we need to use the correct terms when we speak of engineers, particularly in Spanish, to make it gender neutral. So we have men and women engineers creating this content with FIDE experts. And finally, the more experiential part, both with visits at Intel and at the university labs, and also mentorships, which is very important. Women need to hear from women that this is possible, what challenges they have faced, how they overcame them. That support is essential. We are convinced of that. And we have wonderful women at Intel and also partner men engineers that support us until we can influence on their decisions of pursuing STEM courses. So it's a very comprehensive program, and we hope we can start implementing the first phase very soon this year and then continue next year as well. Thank you. And now to conclude, I will finish with Eduardo and Alexander from academia. This is a general question. It was for all of you, but we are very short of time, so you all answered two questions already. So first, Alexander, how do you think we can create new opportunities in countries and other universities that are here? We are from universities that are part of LACCEI. How can this be a bridge to open spaces and work jointly with other actors represented here? There's no doubt that the best way is through strategic partnerships, through collaboration. We have a challenge in the country, and for that, only a solution as a country will work. And that means that we should work together, academia, industry, and the government, with the capabilities, those that we have installed locally and clearly. That is not enough. We have to find collaboration and partnerships with other industries and other members of academia that are perhaps abroad and that also have capabilities that can be helpful for us. I think that the issue of the training of our teachers is critical. And for that, we should also make use of the experience that other organizations have. And if we want to increase R&D, of course, we have to increase the PhD courses in our universities so that our professors have more opportunities for obtaining a PhD. And related to that, we should see how we retain them, because one of the things that our country has suffered is precisely that that talent that was lost because they left the country. They leave the country to obtain a PhD, but then they hardly come back. So I think that's a commitment that as a country we should bear in mind in this challenge ahead. Eduardo. Thank you. I agree with everything my colleagues said, but I would like to add an idea that has been discussed that I've been mentioning already in different meetings, very briefly. You can have 2 or 3 companies or a group of companies that are competitors in a region. They use the same road that was built by the government. The road is common for them. They use it to transport their products, their executives, etc. I think, and I have said this in several meetings, that the center of excellence or center of practice, I would say, for students at a technical, at an undergraduate level, should be built by all, not just by the government, with the resources that the country is receiving. And that center might be managed by a government agency, and it could be used by all institutions, private or public, that are contributing to the education of boys and girls, both technical and professional training, undergraduate, graduate courses. That is something that I think is essential. And there are ways of doing it. It could even be administered by the promoter of innovation. It doesn't matter. So the colleagues here representing the government that are administering the resources to assist this important project, think of that possibility. I think it would be a way, because I've been discussing this with some colleagues. The practical part is very expensive in these trainings. Purchasing equipment for the students to practice is very expensive. It's very difficult. So I think that would be a vital aspect. And you can count on me because I've been studying all the needs related to it. So I'm at your disposal for whatever you may need from Fidelitas University. Thank you. Okay, so we will be finishing this forum now. I would just like to review with you, as you've seen, the big need is human talent. We've all been in this process, studying a lot, and we know that there's a huge opportunity. And besides, we're a very small country, very small. I think one university on their own or the country on its own will not be able to respond to the demand. We need to articulate and coordinate and sit all together just as we are here. It doesn't matter what university we are from, what country we are from, what institution we represent. It's a country solution. And the minorities should be represented here, the so-called minorities, as we said yesterday. Another very important thing that I discussed in the different forum, and we are all here, we should not make education more expensive. It's high technology, the labs are very expensive, and we need to find solutions for this to be feasible, because we don't want to graduate professionals that are indebted for their studies. We want to offer a country solution. So we are all called to work together. I think this is a very important forum. Here we are representing many institutions, many countries, and many interests. So this is a call not for a particular interest, but for a collective interest. So there you have a code, a QR code, for those of you that are interested in continuing this conversation in this part of the world. So we can see how we can join efforts. Some of us have more or less, others are still developing this. So if anybody wants to ask a question, yes, Miguel, the first one to raise his hand, a comment. Hello, good morning. Thank you. That was a very rich panel. It was very interesting to get to know about this important development that is starting in Costa Rica. I would like to say something on behalf of LACCEI. I want to put LACCEI at your disposal in whatever you may need, because I've been listening to some aspects in the talks where LACCEI has been working very hard. For instance, women in technology, women in engineering. There's a chair, that's the Matilda chair. I don't know if you've heard of it. that has been working for many years now. They have written books, they have working commissions, and I think Costa Rica, apart from participating in Matilda Chair, they can also take models of work with women to bring them closer to technology. Actually, this is being done in several of our countries. I also think that acting quickly in all the matrix, in all the education matrix, is very suitable in order to obtain the education quickly. Perhaps in the curricula, we can introduce micro changes, or the graduates, we can offer quick specializations because there are experiences in other countries like Argentina that I can share with you. When we wanted to go back to education in railways, we had to do the same because waiting for 5 years is not possible. But I think Costa Rica has a great opportunity because you can make global, general decisions to deal with the semiconductor issue, but also science and technology being installed definitely in the country. And there, those of us that are part of LACCEI, we are at your disposal, not only as LACCEI, but also as the universities we are representing. Working in Central America, we are developing bilateral relationships to create graduate courses, PhDs in engineering in some countries. But we say, okay, let's create the PhDs, let's equip the labs here, let's develop the PhD courses here. Let's use this South-South relationship to reduce costs, to have common goals, and the doctor is trained with the support, and there's a comprehensive development of these people that will not only deal with semiconductors. Costa Rica needs to have a global scientific and technological development to use this opportunity, and for that, academia needs a lot of government support. But the profitability of that support in terms of human capital and future development is very important. That's why I would like to offer our support. We have created the Council of Deans of Engineering, Technology and Applied Sciences of Costa Rica. We included it in a regional council that can be a valid counterpart for these things to happen. And behind them is LACCEI supporting this movement. So I'm very pleased for having heard this panel to learn about what's happening in Costa Rica and your great work. Congratulations.
Any other comments or questions? Maria? LACCEI is working on writing multinational grants. We've already launched 2 grants related to semiconductors. We won't know whether we will get it for several months, but a crucial one is accessing a chip hub of the Americas, not just for North America or at a national level, and also creating an academic and industrial ecosystem to train and develop our human talent from K-12, meaning primary school, through technical degrees, engineering, technologists, and to provide the research that is needed. We are aiming at training those people, and we are also looking into workforce development. For instance, for migrant workers who are coming from other countries and who have an education, well, they can actually enroll in programs and can quickly become trained and become experts in semiconductors instead of driving an Uber or being street sellers. So that's important, and that is a strategy that we're developing and calling upon the Triple Helixes program. So I would like to invite you to give us your contributions. You are very advanced in terms of the perspectives of what you need in order to ensure international collaboration in the benefit of all of Latin American countries. And you are very well familiar with what Costa Rica needs. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Okay, we will go ahead and close this panel. I would like to say thank you to our experts, and I would like to ask for a round of applause for all of them. Also, please spread the word. This panel will be recorded and will be online so that everybody can look at it and can hear our experts. And we want to come up with a database of new professionals that want to participate in panels such as this one, which are really important to Latin America. Thank you. Good afternoon. You have the QR code right there for the database.